Nobody could answer that question. Then I moved to disqualify Miss Vito as an expert witness. Can you answer the question? No, it is a trick question. Marisa Tomei's memorable performance in My Cousin Vinnie earned her an Oscar, but her contributions to the film go far beyond her iconic role as Mona Lisa Vito. Initially, the studio wasn't convinced she was the right fit for the sassy, Brooklyn-born girlfriend of an inexperienced lawyer. However, director Jonathan Lynn saw something special in Tomei and decided to take a chance on the relatively unknown actress. From casting controversies to on-set surprises, Marisa Tomei's involvement in this comedy classic is full of unexpected twists and turns. Did Marisa Tomei bring something extra to the production of My Cousin Vinnie that shaped the film's success? March 13, 1992, marks the debut of a comedy gem that would become a cultural phenomenon. My Cousin Vinnie, directed by Jonathan Lynn and produced by Dale Lohner and Paul Schiff, features a brilliant cast of actors. Joe Pesci, with his trademark intensity, embodies the unforgettable Vinnie Gambini, while Ralph Macchio and Mitchell Whitfield perfectly portray the hapless Bill and Stan. And then there's the scene-stealing Marisa Tomei as the sassy Mona Lisa Vito, a role that rightfully earned her an Academy Award. The film also includes the legendary Fred Gwynne in his final role as the stern but exasperated Judge Chamberlain Holler, alongside Lane Smith and Bruce McGill. Released by 20th Century Fox, this iconic movie follows the misadventures of Bill Gambini and Stan Rothenstein, two New York college students whose simple road trip to California takes a drastic detour after a routine stop at a backwoods Alabama convenience store. They find themselves entangled in a murder accusation and facing a full-blown trial. With limited resources, their only hope hinges on Bill's cousin Vinnie, a newly minted lawyer with more street smarts than courtroom experience. Vinnie's brash Brooklyn attitude and complete lack of trial knowledge clash spectacularly with the formal Southern courtroom setting, creating a hilarious recipe for disaster, legal missteps, misunderstandings, and Vinnie's fumbling attempts to grasp Southern culture set the stage for uproarious comedy. Yet beneath the laughter, My Cousin Vinnie delves into the complexities of criminal trials, offering a surprisingly accurate glimpse into the mechanics of legal proceedings. This unique blend of humor and realism has solidified the film's status as a classic, beloved by audiences and legal professionals alike. And that's not the only risk My Cousin Vinnie took. The studio was hesitant about casting Marisa Tomei as the sharp-tongued Mona Lisa Vito. At the time, Tomei was known mostly for smaller roles, including a soap opera stint. Could she carry the comedic weight and undeniable sass the role demanded? Director Jonathan Lynn thought so. He noticed her potential on the set of the 1991 comedy Oscar, where she played a feisty maid. Lynn envisioned a Mona Lisa bursting with charisma and quick wit, a woman who could match Vinnie's chaotic energy and ground his inexperience. He pushed for Tomei, ignoring the studio's desire for a big-name actress. Any lingering doubts evaporated the moment Tomei delivered that iconic, "Oh yeah, you blend" line. It was a perfect mix of sarcasm and genuine concern, setting the stage for her unforgettable performance. Mona Lisa is more than just a collection of sharp retorts. She's fiercely loyal, intelligent, and surprisingly knowledgeable about cars, a pivotal point in the film's climax. Tomei's performance earned her not only widespread praise but also an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, catapulting her to stardom. The studio's reluctance to cast Tomei wasn't unfounded. They'd initially approached Lorraine Bracco, known for her iconic role in The Sopranos, but she passed. It's tantalizing to imagine a different Mona Lisa, but hard to picture anyone else capturing the character's perfect balance of fire, heart, and wit. Lisa, but would she have had the same chemistry with Vinnie? The same unexpected spark? Speaking of Vinnie, the studio's original choice was Andrew Dice Clay, the notoriously brash comedian. Imagine that version of the film. Other big names like Danny DeVito and Peter Falk were considered, and even Robert De Niro and Jim Belushi were in the mix, but none of them quite fit. They lacked the specific Italian-American flair the role demanded. Ultimately, it was Joe Pesci, fresh off Lethal Weapon 2, and wrapping up his legendary performance in Goodfellas, who secured the part. He brought Vinnie to life with a perfect blend of intensity, street smarts, and comedic timing. Bonus fact: Ben Stiller and Will Smith were once considered for the roles of Bill and Stan. However, concerns were raised about the believability of a Jewish and black man being wrongly accused of murder in the Deep South. Instead, Ralph Macchio and Mitchell Whitfield were cast. They brought a youthful vulnerability and innocence to the roles that helped ground the story. By betting on lesser-known actors and relying on a strong directorial vision, the team turned a film about legal mishaps into a timeless comedy classic. Think you know everything about My Cousin Vinnie? Think again. The world of Beecham County, Alabama, where Vinnie fights for his cousin's freedom, might not be entirely what it seems. Sure, the drawl and southern hospitality feel authentic. But those rolling hills and quaint towns were actually filmed in a neighboring state, Georgia. The charming town of Monticello, Georgia, stood in for the fictional Beecham County. You can still spot locations like Lucy's secondhand store, where Vinnie and Mona Lisa examined those fateful tire marks, and that imposing courthouse. Actually, the Jasper County Superior Court in Monticello. Here's the real kicker. Beecham County doesn't even exist in Alabama. It's a fictional creation that adds to the film's slightly surreal, off-kilter charm. Even the Sicko Suds convenience store, the scene of the crime, still standing in Monticello. A must-see for any die-hard My Cousin Vinnie fan. And if you thought the jail looked eerily realistic, that's because it was. Those tense scenes were filmed at the Lee Arundel Correctional Institute in Alto, Georgia. The filmmakers clearly went the extra mile to bring the world of My Cousin Vinnie to life, even if it meant bending a few geographic truths. And did you know the hilarious courtroom chaos was actually inspired by real life? It all started with a conversation screenwriter Dale Lohner had in the 1970s. Lohner, who also wrote hits like Ruthless People and Dirty Rotten. Scoundrels, ran into a young man nervously waiting for his bar exam results. Curious, Lohner asked, what would happen if he failed? The answer: he'd simply take it again. That sparked a bigger question. What's the most time someone has failed the bar and still become a lawyer? The magic number turned out to be 13. 13 failed attempts before finally passing. Lohner's imagination took off. What kind of lawyer would that person be? What if they were someone's only hope in a serious criminal case? A lawyer fresh off his 13th bar exam. Try is suddenly tasked with defending his cousin from a murder charge in the heart of the Deep South. This fish-out-of-water scenario became the foundation of My Cousin Vinnie. The clash of cultures, the hostility of a small town, and an unfamiliar legal system would already be enough to challenge anyone. But screenwriter Dale Lohner didn't stop there. He added the unforgettable Mona Lisa Vito, a savvy mechanic with attitude and insight, her deep knowledge of cars and unfiltered honesty proved essential as the case unfolded. The script was quickly snapped up by 20th Century Fox, but Lohner kept digging for authenticity. He took a road trip through the South, pulling from real-life encounters to enrich the film's realism. A moment where a car gets stuck in the mud made it into the final cut. And one assistant district attorney he met even inspired the character of Jim Trotter, played with gravitas by Lane Smith. Lohner also researched courtroom procedures extensively and discovered that what happens in real trials often diverges wildly from what's taught in law school. Perfect for a character like Vinnie, whose legal instincts are scrappy and improvised rather than polished and conventional. Vinnie Gambini wasn't inspired by a brilliant legal mind. Instead, he was drawn from the loudmouths and fast-talkers Joe Pesci had grown up around in New Jersey. Pesci, with his razor-sharp timing and intense energy, was the ideal choice. He captured the bravado, wit, and sheer persistence that made Vinnie both hilarious and surprisingly competent. His performance was so convincing that some viewers believed he was a real lawyer. That quick-talking, street-smart persona wasn't invented, it was lived. And yet, believe it or not, the studio originally wanted to cut Mona Lisa Vito from the script. Imagine My Cousin Vinnie without its most iconic character. Lohner wasn't going to let that happen, but to keep her in, he had to play ball with the studio's demands. They wanted a stereotypical scene, the girlfriend, whining that she's being ignored while the man focuses on more important things. Lana hated the trope but saw an opportunity. He wrote a scene where Mona Lisa does confront Vinnie, but it's done with wit, intelligence, and self-awareness. Instead of reducing her character, it elevated her. She was sharp, insightful, and fully in control of the moment, reminding Vinnie and the audience that she's an equal partner, not a background character. One of the film's most iconic moments, the biological clock scene, almost didn't happen. It wasn't part of the original script, and once again, the studio was pressuring Lana for a more traditional conflict. But rather than give in to cliches, he delivered a scene that was both hilarious and revealing. Mona Lisa, in her leopard print and heels, talks about her ticking clock. But it's not just for laughs. It's a peek into her vulnerability, her aspirations, and the deeper layers of her character. Meanwhile, Vinnie's panic is both spartan and endearing. The scene avoids becoming a cringe-worthy cliché by turning expectations on their head. It's funny, real, and sets the stage for Mona Lisa's later heroics in the courtroom. Here's another twist. Lana originally envisioned Robert De Niro as Vinnie. Yes, the same De Niro known for intense, brooding roles in Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. In the early 90s, he hadn't yet shown his comedic chops to the world. Lana saw the potential for dramatic weight and unexpected humor, but the studio didn't buy it. To them, De Niro didn't fit. The pitch didn't land. Imagine trying to convince executives that the man famous for delivering "You Token" to me could deliver laughs in a courtroom comedy. Awkward. Ironically, De Niro would later prove he could do comedy brilliantly in films like Meet the Parents. But at the time, the studio passed, and thankfully, Joe Pesci stepped in to make the role unforgettable. Parents, his ability to play both drama and humor, made him a versatile and dynamic actor. The studio may have missed a golden opportunity by passing on what could have been a uniquely hilarious and iconic take on Vinnie Gambini. Sure, Joe Pesci's performance became legendary in its own right, but it's always fun to play the Hollywood what-if game. Just imagine De Niro in that Alabama courtroom giving those signature tough guy stares, only this time, they're filled with complete confusion at the chaos surrounding him. Sometimes the best inspiration comes not from sitting at a desk, but from hitting the road. Screenwriter Dale Lawner didn't want some generic version of the South. He wanted the real thing, with all its quirks, flavors, and unexpected moments. So he took a road trip, renting a car in New Orleans and exploring southern towns too. Absorb every detail that could lend authenticity to My Cousin Vinnie. He got stuck in the mud. A mishap that made its way into the script. He became fixated on grits, which also found their way into the story. And those eerie owl hoots, they became the perfect late-night background noise as Vinnie and Lisa strategized. Along the way, Lawner encountered friendly sheriffs, stern judges, and even a real-life know-it-all car expert. These experiences didn't just inspire, they became the heart of the film's vivid, eccentric characters. And then there's Mona Lisa's courtroom testimony, one of the most iconic scenes in film history. Decked out in her bold style, and armed with razor-sharp wit, she takes the stand and shreds the prosecution's case to pieces. Her knowledge of cars, gained in her father's garage, exposes a key flaw in the evidence and helps clear Vinnie's cousin. The moment is pitch perfect, but there's a catch. Her confident claim about car specs wasn't entirely accurate. She states that only 2 cars in the 60s had both positive traction and independent rear suspension. One being the 1963 Pontiac Tempest. The implication is that no other vehicle could have left the tire tracks. But there was another, the 1964 Studebaker Avanti. That little slip didn't go unnoticed. On opening night, Lawner's care-obsessed high school friend called him up to point out the oversight. Lawner's reaction, he didn't sweat it. The detail didn't change the outcome or hurt the comedy, and most of the audience never knew the difference. Even his nitpicky friend enjoyed the movie, maybe in spite of himself. Now picture this, a Brooklyn lawyer, all fast-talking bravado, standing before an old-school Southern judge with a drawl as slow as molasses. That kind of culture clash writes itself. Add in some regional dialect confusion, and you've got the makings of comedy gold. That's exactly how the legendary Two Utes scene was born. Vinnie, thick New Jersey accent and all, refers to his clients as Two Utes, and the judge, baffled, asks for clarification. Delivery, the timing, the confusion. It's the kind of moment that feels too perfect to be scripted. Yet it's grounded in the very real humor of regional misunderstanding. UTS accused of murder stands before Judge Holler, who squints through his glasses and mutters in his thick southern drawl, "What's a Ute?" The word sounds utterly alien, as if Vinnie had spoken Martian instead of English. Vinnie repeats himself, now equally confused. The more they go back and forth, the worse the misunderstanding gets, and the funnier it becomes. The kicker-ish wasn't even originally in the script. Hilarious exchange was born out of a genuine moment between director Jonathan Lynn and Joe Pesci during pre-production. Lynn, being British, misheard Pesci's youths as Utes, sparking a moment of confusion that turned into comedic gold. Lynn saw its potential instantly. It wasn't just a joke about pronunciation. It was a perfect encapsulation of Vinnie's fish-out-of-water predicament. And from that real-life miscommunication came one of the film's most beloved comedic moments. As brilliant as Vinnie becomes, in the courtroom, it's hard to forget he needed 6 tries to pass the bar exam. What was going on there? Originally, the script had an answer. Vinnie was written as dyslexic. That would have explained his academic struggles and added a thoughtful layer to his character. But in the end, the scene was cut. Joe Pesci didn't feel comfortable portraying dyslexia, and there were concerns it might make Vinnie seem less intelligent to audiences. In hindsight, it may have been a smart call. By leaving the reason for Vinnie's repeated bar exam failures a mystery, the film invites the audience to fill in the blanks. Maybe he was just bad at standardized tests. He didn't take law school seriously. Maybe the system simply failed to recognize his potential. Whatever the case, it deepens Vinnie's character. He's rough around the edges, street smart, and resourceful, the kind of underdog who surprises everyone. If we had been handed an excuse for his struggles, his eventual courtroom triumphs wouldn't feel quite as earned. Some of the most intense scenes in the movie were filmed in a real prison, the Lee Arundel State Prison in Georgia. Director Jonathan Lynn wanted more than just authenticity. He wanted the real thing. That meant shooting scenes inside a working maximum security facility, just steps away from death row. Lynn recalled feeling a chill as he stepped through the gates, knowing full well what kind of place they were entering. The actors felt it too. Mitchell Whitfield, who played Stan, remembered walking through the prison covered in blankets, completely exposed to the raw energy and tension of the space. And those catcalls during the prison scenes, they weren't scripted, so those were real inmates, not actors, adding a layer of reality and a fair bit of discomfort to the experience. While some of the more disturbing remarks were cut in post-production, the fact they happened at all speaks volumes about what it was like to film there. It wasn't just the prisoners who were real. The guards you see in those scenes, actual Lee Arundel correctional officers playing themselves. Real inmates were used as extras, both in the background when Bill and Stan arrive, and in the outdoor basketball scene. Lynn was blown away by the level of cooperation from the prison administration, who not only allowed filming on site, but participated in it. This commitment to realism gave the film a texture and grit that's hard to fake, the kind of detail that helps My Cousin Vinnie stand out as more than just a comedy. It's grounded, layered, and at times, uncomfortably real. One of the more fascinating behind-the-scenes revelations about the prison scenes in My Cousin Vinnie came from the commentary, with their speculation about the carrots and sticks that may have been used to keep things running smoothly, whether it was incentives or strict oversight. Something clearly kept the real-life inmates and guards cooperating with the film crew. That unique blend of real and scripted elements added an unpredictable energy to the prison scenes, contributing to the tension and unease that permeated those moments. Filming in a maximum security prison gave the movie a layer of realism that couldn't be faked. And even the actors weren't immune to the psychological weight of the setting. Ralph Macchio and Mitchell Whitfield, who played Bill and Stan, brought a believable sense of vulnerability to their roles, and part of that likely came from real fear. Surrounded by actual inmates, including some just feet away from death row, the actors had good reason to feel anxious. Guards were present for protection, but the sheer volatility of the environment was enough to keep everyone on edge. Ow! That nervous energy bled into the performances, giving scenes a rawness that can't be rehearsed. It's easy to imagine the actors hoping Vinnie Gambini could work his legal magic and get them out of there faster. Behind every great courtroom comedy lies a duo with undeniable chemistry. In the heart of My Cousin Vinnie is the electric dynamic. Between Joe Pesci and Marisa Tomei, their on-screen relationship pulses with bickering, a support, frustration, and warmth all in equal measure. But that connection wasn't guaranteed. Key. Already an established actor known for intense roles and a reputation for being unpredictable off-screen, wasn't the obvious pick for a comedic lead. Tomei was relatively unknown at the time, and this film marked her first major movie role. Yet from their first scenes together, the chemistry was instant. Pesci saw something in her and took her under his wing, becoming a kind of mentor on set. He even brought his guitar. The two would sing together between takes, a softer side of Pesci that few expected. Despite initial studio hesitation, Pesci was convinced Tomei was the perfect choice for Mona Lisa. Tomei later spoke fondly of him, describing him as a genuinely kind person who helped ease her into the pressure of a high-profile role. That real-life bond helped their on-screen connection feel authentic, even though there was a significant 22-year age difference between them. To make the pairing more believable, the production team relied on subtle tricks. Makeup artist Carmen Willis revealed that Pesci underwent a temporary facelift each day of filming, using strategically placed tabs and hooks to tighten the skin and create a more youthful appearance. A carefully applied hairpiece concealed the mechanics of the lift. The process took hours, but Pesci was a professional throughout. Sometimes the tabs would slip, causing unplanned and hilarious moments during filming. But it worked. The audience never questioned the dynamic, which speaks to both the performance and the behind-the-scenes craftsmanship. Marisa Tomei's road to Oscar gold didn't begin with glamour, it started with a nap. She was sleeping on a friend's couch, her friend heavily pregnant and ready to give birth at any moment. When the Oscar nominations were announced on TV, her friend and others in the room exploded with excitement, jumping and screaming. Tomei jolted awake, assuming her friend had gone into labor. In a flurry of panic, she leaped up ready to help get her to the hospital. What followed was pure chaos, her friends trying to explain that, no, the baby wasn't coming, but yes, she was. Going to the Oscars? That moment of confusion, then disbelief, then wide-eyed realization mirrored the kind of energy she'd brought to Mona Lisa, surprised, quick thinking, and unforgettable. Tomei's talent, like Vinnie's, may have initially been underestimated, but her performance proved undeniable. Winning the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress wasn't just a career-defining moment, it was a cultural one. Her portrayal of Mona Lisa Vito elevated what could have been a side character into one of the most beloved, quotable, and powerful presences in film comedy. From a couch nap to Oscar night, Tomei's journey, much like the film itself, was anything but predictable. And all the more iconic because of it. Picture this: a rookie lawyer, fresh out of law school, barely scraping by, suddenly tasked with defending two kids in a murder trial in the Deep South. That's how the idea for Vinnie Gambini was born, a man with more nerve than experience, thrown into a situation way over his head, and somehow managing to pull it off with charm, grit, and a lot of improvisation.